Vlatko Cančar steps in and steps up. The Nuggets bounce back big time after the loss to the Pistons. Back to rolling. We'll talk about how much the Nuggets need to be better, and we'll take a look around the Western Conference. All that and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and available on all platforms. And by we, I mean me, Matt Moore. You can find me on Twitter at HB Basketball. His name's Adam Mares. You can find him at DNVR and at the DNVR bar before and after every Nuggets show, game. You can follow him on Twitter at Adam_Mares. Thanks for joining us on a Sunday night. We're getting this started on a Sunday night to make sure that we get Optimism Monday kicked off right after we had our last show, Adam, after the Nuggets had the worst loss of the season and the sky was
our last show.
And then I checked, and then and then they just took care of business and did what they were supposed to do, and they beat the Thunder on a back-to-back, and then took care of the Clippers, who were without a bunch of folks, but they look good. We could start any number of ways about recapping the last game, two games here, but I think we got to start with Vlatko. And what he's brought to the table. I know you want to get my thoughts on it, but let's go ahead and get your thoughts on what the Chan D-Man has brought to the table.
I mean, his last three games have been among the best of his career. I told him that today, by the way, at practice. I told him I thought these ones were. He kind of agreed with it. I think he looks more confident. I mean, he's always been a guy, I've always said he's a guy that does the right thing every time and reads the court an extremely high level. He hasn't necessarily had the confidence to do things though with those talents. It's almost been more of a just be out, out of the way or whatever. He has been the fulcrum. The way Jokic is the fulcrum, he's kind of been a mini Jokic for the Nuggets with that second unit, just in terms of being the center of attention, keeping the ball moving. And it segued from him doing that one game to here we are 3 games later where the team sort of trusted him in that last one to do it. They were looking to him as hey, let's get it back to you and run around you again a little bit more. And I asked him about that today, and he said, I think it really makes sense having a player like me around a lot of more talented players because they all know I'm going to just get them the ball back. And it's good to have weapons and I can make the reads. And honestly, this is how I would analyze watching him play. It makes for an interesting thing going forward. We don't have to step too far forward, but I just really like when we talk about how does that second unit develop an identity and how do they get everyone involved. It's crazy that he has sort of tied the room together over these last few games, a very small sample size. He's tied them together to where everybody has been involved with him out there.
Yeah, he's played great. Last game, 13 points, 4 of 9 shooting, 2 assists, 2 of 4 from 3. The spacing really helps in terms of what he's able to provide, and a plus 10. He's been dynamite the last couple of games, filled in great. I think it's interesting to kind of look at who's played and who hasn't the last couple of games and what's worked and what has in the last couple of games. There's a lot of, I think, look, I'm trying to think how to put this. I'm open to the idea that Vlatko can really make a leap. Guys do this in the NBA all the time. And it's not even necessarily about just getting the opportunity. It's about getting the opportunity at the right time, if that makes sense, and those kind of things. And this may be the right opportunity at the right time. I'm very open to that. I don't want to express any sort of skepticism or cynicism based off of the small sample or the opponent or whatever, because then it just seems like I'm doubling down. I don't want to do that. So I think it's important what he is able to bring to the table. I will say that in years past, you'd labeled him as a low mistake player. And it was interesting because I was asking folks in the media room, what do you think about that? And there was disagreement. I think it's interesting that we can have I think it's interesting in that you and I view the mistakes that we hone in on are maybe different in that regard, but I'll also say I think he's a lower mistake player now. I think after Eurobasket, I think after more experience in the NBA, I think after more time going through all these things, I think he makes fewer mistakes. And I think that's really key because the big goal, honestly, on this team is as long as you're able to just do your job, there's enough talent around for you to really help. Like whatever it is that you do. Like if DJ just does his job, DJ can help with the rebounding because there's enough talent around him. With Bones, if he just does his job and is able to score a little bit.
Bones is the one that has the hardest job to me.
Yeah, he has
in the traditional second unit. I don't know that he can just do his job because his job is kind of being like a super, like floor general and scorer. I think Bones is the one guy, but maybe this alleviates it. I mean, look, we haven't seen Vlatko and Bones. Maybe that doesn't work. Like maybe it's nothing that's not good. We also haven't really seen Ish in Bones, and Ish looked so great over this last game when he finally got healthy. So part of me, there's some exciting things with the Nuggets second unit right now, but there's not clarity on it because it's been like, we don't know who plays when everybody's there. Like I suspect Jeff Green is out. He did not practice today. I suspect he'll be out for a little bit. So I think we're going to get an extended look at Vlatko Cancar. But I can't say that I know exactly what the pecking order is for the Denver Nuggets second unit. I would not be surprised if everybody was healthy tomorrow, if it wouldn't be Jeff Green and DeAndre Jordan back out on the court. But that being said, I hope we get an extended look at Vlatko Cancar in this role. And then we're only talking about the offensive part here where he's kind of being the fulcrum and setting screens. And just the thing about him is he moves the ball so quickly. He never holds the ball for more than a half a second. And just having a guy that does that, it's contagious. The ball gets moving. But defensively, he's been incredible. First of all, you have to go back against the Thunder and say that he was the best defender on the court against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which is not a sentence I thought I would ever speak about Vlatko Cancar, that he would be the fix for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But here he was, completely flustering him in the fourth quarter and overtime. Yeah. And then he had I thought, some great defensive sequences as well in this last one, including on John Wall in the open court. So to me, his defense is above average, even for Denver's second unit. His offense, he seems to help give them an identity. I don't know. I don't want to say that I know after 3 weird games that I know this. By the way, the one game he didn't play, the one they lost against Detroit, which is really weird. He didn't play in that one. But I do think that he has earned an opportunity to see what he's got, especially given that Jeff Green will still be out.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. CT says this, and it's a good point. I feel like Vlatko can make decisions out of the short roll really well compared to the other front court options. I agree with that. DJ's actually made a surprising number of ones I didn't think he would ever make, and he's made a couple of those, but I think Vlatko is perfectly built for it with his mobility and just the passing instincts. I mean, CT is a very much a member of the young guy hive that so many are part of, but he's not wrong, Larry.
Is Vlatko, here's the thing, is Vlatko young? Like Vlatko
I think it's more that like he's the guys that are unknown, I think are always more highly regarded than the ones that are known. I just find that like the unknown guys are always ones that if
yeah. So here's one of my takeaways from this last game. So there's the Vlatko piece, and this kind of ties into the Vlatko piece. And I just did a rewatch of this last game and doing a rewatch of the Thunder game. The Nuggets, to me, maybe it's the absence of Michael Porter. The Nuggets, to me, look like they have gotten better at reading things on the fly. Jokic is always elite at this. Jamal Murray has been very good at this for a while, but even guys like Aaron Gordon, and yes, Vlatko Cancar, and it's funny because he hasn't been playing, but he is in practice, and I do think he's just a smart guy. The Clippers kept trying to disguise when they were in zone or not in zone and switch who was guarding Jokic because they didn't want to put Zubats on him. They didn't want to put Brown on him. They were trying to get clever there. And I thought the Nuggets as a whole, but including Vlatko Cancar when he shared the court with them, just like perfectly read, oh, they're in this, go to this. Put this guy on me, go to this. And that's one of the things that I think makes Denver really, really, I mean, they smashed the Clippers whenever they wanted to, like whenever things were like, hey, we need to focus in. And they smashed it by all reading exactly what they needed to do based on the coverage there. And that's a bonus for a Vlatko Cancar. That is a veteran bonus. Those are the types of things veterans have. And he's a young, inexperienced player, but he has that already.
So I'm working on a Nuggets column for Wednesday because I've got the NBA bet stream for Rockets Nuggets on Wednesday. 2 games set this week with the Rockets for the Nuggets. And so I've been diving a lot into the numbers. And like one thing that I think just keeps kind of coming back to me is, I'm pro Jeff Green. Like that's been established. Like I'm a pro. When they got him, I was like, you're going to be surprised. He's going to be very helpful. He's going to hit like a corner 3 in the playoffs. It's going to be useful. I said this a couple of weeks ago on the show where I was like, I think they may have to trade Green. I think I'm still kind of there, and maybe they're more aggressively. And it's not about Jeff. It's about I really do think that so much of NBA basketball is about finding the right combination of guys, and it doesn't always make intuitive sense.
Of course. Especially when you're talking about a second unit. Like, you're not talking about a superstar. You're talking about the role players. So a lesser role player for a role player that fits could make sense. I don't know if I'm with you on Jeff, though. And what's funny is Jeff and Zeke, to me, are competing for minutes. Vlatko is probably competing with minutes for DeAndre, in my opinion. I'm curious if Jeff and Vlatko would work. I think they would.
I think what most people want, though, is Zeke Vlatko, right? Like, that's like the one that they want to get to, is like all of the spacing, all of the dynamicism, all of the potential is kind of loaded in that, versus the very, I don't even know if it's one dimensional is fair to those guys, but the very defined role player aspect of Jeff Green and DeAndre Jordan. Like, you know what you're getting with them, but that's like the problem, I think, for a lot of fans, is like, you know what you're getting with them. Yeah. And that, like, I think it limits it. The numbers are interesting, just diving into it a little bit, because, and we're going to talk about this in the second segment, about how much better do the Nuggets need to be really this season. And what's interesting is when we look at kind of some of the numbers, like, a lot of these are going to be shifted by huge blowouts. I actually had a very prominent, like, I would describe him as a very prominent NBA person on a staff that was texting me today, and like was actually asking me questions about plus minus, because he'd never really looked at it. And I was trying to explain like why I actually think it's valuable. It's like, look, it just tells you, like, is this working or is this not? And what's been interesting is, like, looking at some of the Nugget stuff about what's been working and what isn't. You do kind of get into some of these interesting questions of how much of this is the player. Because in truth, plus minus, I try to stress this, it doesn't tell you how a player played. Like, you can be great and you can lose your minutes, and you can play terrible and you can win your minutes. And the question is, like, do you care about, like, which of those things do you care about? Right? Like, which of those things really matters to you? What I do think, though, is when you look at Vlatko and what he's brought to the table the last 3 games, is you have a guy that's brought a tangible positive in situations where they've needed it. And I think, honestly, at this point, you don't want a coach to be knee-jerk, and he's got to be careful with that for the locker room as well. But I do think at some level there needs to be, because in the past especially, there's been kind of a, look, this is working, so why would we change it? That's where I think, like, Malone kind of needs to hold to it, is like, look, this has been working. Playing Vlatko has been working, so why not stick with it until it shows it doesn't work, you know?
The hard part is upcoming Houston Rockets. It should work. Like, it's hard because there's always confirmation. If you had at Boston, at Toronto right now, and it's like, hey, let's give Vlatko a chance. It would be unfair, because it'd be like, man, they were supposed to lose these. They're supposed to win these ones. So I fully expect Vlatko to play, because I think Jeff Green will be out, and I expect them to win big. How much is that going to tell us? To be determined. We'll have to find out.
Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll answer the question of how much better do the Nuggets need to be this season. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I've got to tell you about Turo. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. You browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion across the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. You can get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B. Or you can test drive the new electric vehicle you've had your eye on to see how it fits your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusives apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making Locked On Nuggets your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes. With local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. All right, segment 2 here with Adam Mares for a Sunday night edition of Optimism Monday. And we're going to do some Optimism Monday because I think it's nice. Adam and I are in the same kind of zone with the Nuggets, and I think that that's really great. It's also very nice. We talk about, the adage in the NBA sticks in my head all the time after that Pistons loss, right? Like, what's the worst thing about the NBA? You got another game in 48 hours. What's the best thing about the NBA? You got another game in 48 hours. And for them, it was 24 hours. They got the win versus the Thunder and then knocked off the Clippers. Again, a real banged up Clippers team, missing a bunch of guys, but still you take the win where you can get it. And this week they've got 2 games versus the Houston Rockets, and that's another opportunity for them to kind of bolster up the record. They are, as many people have commented, especially Swipa on Twitter has been kind of stressing this, and it's important. They're one game out of first in the Western Conference. So for all of the bench problems, for all of the absences, for all of the COVID stuff, for all of the loss to the Pistons, for all of these things, the Nuggets are 1 game back of the lead in the Western Conference. They have, there's every reason. This is what's great. They've got these wins. They've got this record. And Adam, I think their best basketball is still very much ahead of them.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
My question for you is, we talk, there's a lot of time spent trying to address, I think about this a lot. We're trying to figure out, okay, how do they fix the bench? What needs to happen? Does it need to be Vlatko? Do you bench Jeff? Do you bench DeAndre? All these type of things. The Nuggets are plus 14 in net rating when Nikola Jokic is on the floor. Plus 14. And so, the question just becomes, with how this team is built and what we expect from them and the schedule, which has been so road heavy, even though it's been against weak opponents to start the season, honestly, how much better the Nuggets need to be across the remaining 60 games?
I mean, we're about to find out, the answer to that. But my hunch is, I'm with you in this one way. The Nuggets starting unit and the various versions of the starting unit are so much better than I think we even realize. And I think that's going to really pop here going forward. You mentioned Jokic's plus 14 net rating. He's, I think, number 1 in the NBA in just raw plus minus per game. Meaning when he's on the court, it's 9.1 or something. That's higher even than just Steph Curry. So at the moment, you're kind of outscoring opponents by 10 points just with the Jokic minutes. It means you have to survive about 12 minutes without Jokic with a 10-point lead. And so the question comes down to the bench. It comes down to a couple things. It comes down to the Michael Porter question. It comes down to the defense question, which is tied to the Michael Porter one in large part. And then it comes down to the bench. We can start with the bench. I think that the bench is the one that has suffered the most from the lack of continuity over these first 19 games. Just all the different guys in and out of their lineup. You get Bones back. I'm pretty sure he will play. He was at practice today. I actually talked to him for a little bit. He sounded like he will be back, but he needs to get his lungs. I mean, he's basically been sick for 2 weeks, and he would, his lungs are going to have to come back a little bit. So I bet he's on a minutes restriction, but plays tomorrow. You get Bones back. I would love to see Bones and Ish share the court. It worked so well in the preseason, and watching Ish just get through the first line of defense and collapse and make reads. I would love to. We've talked about Bones being good, but I'd love to give him a secondary ball handler. I'd love to see that. I know it's a defensive liability, but guess what? The second unit is a second unit liability. Let's try something different. And I'd love to see Vlatko get some minutes too. So those 3 guys, to me, with Michael Porter out, Bruce Brown's a starter. With those 3 guys, to me, would be the first 3 guys in as I start to construct a bench. And I want to see what that looks like, because if it looks even just average, I think the Nuggets are in line for a nice extended run.
I want to see more. Well, I'll go to your kind of comments first. I think to me, this gets back to the core thing I've been preaching about, which is maybe Vlatko is the one that provides it. This is entirely possible that Vlatko literally does provide an identity for them as a replicant of Jokic.
Does he provide more of an identity than Ish and Bones?
I think so.
Really?
I think so. The reason I would say that is I don't know that Bones knows how to run a team yet. That takes so long, right? NBA point guards have told me it's 5 years before they felt like they really understood how to run point. And with Ish, I think Ish is always in the mindset of kind of look, man, I know the deal. I know my contract situation. I know I could be somewhere else in a month, in 2 months. I could be let go. He knows the kind of deal. So he's just going to kind of do what he does, right? I think if it's going to be somebody that if you're going to find an identity, I think it's going to have to be a 2-man combination that asserts it. Because I was tweeting about this over the weekend. I keep going back.
By the way, this is my defensive Bones on this, because while I agree with you that he's still a second-year point guard, I just think he is better than what he has looked so far this season, in part because I just think it's near impossible for anyone to have an identity, because the unit they've thrown out there to me doesn't make a ton of sense. Some of this is by necessity, by the way. They've had a lot of injuries, but I just think it's been hard. But if you give him an Ish, if you give him a Vlatko, you give him some of these other options, I do think it starts to make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I'll say this. What's funny is I was looking at some of the 3-man lineups. I was going through and I looked at 3-man lineups that did not, when Nikola is not on the court. And one of the best ones is Bones, MPJ, and DeAndre. And another of the best ones is Bones, DeAndre, and Christian Brown. Like, there are these combinations that have genuinely kind of worked, because that's what I'm trying to understand is what does Bones need? Like, that's what I've been trying to solve for, which I think why I kind of return back to more of a critical analysis of Bones is I can't identify when I watch what he needs. I don't know what it is that's missing. And maybe you have a better feel for that than I do. That's entirely possible. And probable, I would even say. But for me, I can't identify what it is that's missing for Bones to be able to say this isn't working. Because we talked about this, right? It's well, conceptually, it's not enough spacing or this, that, or the other. But a lot of times that doesn't even necessarily match up, right? It's these things aren't, no, it's not always intuitive. So that's kind of where I'm kind of coming from. It's interesting because I'm not opposed to just removing DJ from the equation because the plus minus literally is that. But I'll say this, his is actually on the lighter side of the bench. And I know this is not what you're trying to get to. I'm more just speaking generically. I expected to every time I dive into this to be I can't get around it. It's DJ. DJ's the problem. And I can't get there. I test metrics, anything. I can't find a dynamic that says that DeAndre Jordan is the problem for the bench. Does that make sense?
Sure. I mean, I think any of that stuff would be hot, a little bit hot takey at the moment, just to try to pin it on one guy. I mean, a lot of this is just especially over a lot of these guys have only played 12 or 13 games just because they've all missed time so far. So 1 20-point blowout where you were a -20, which by the way, the bench has been a -20 on multiple occasions. 1 or 2 of those and your plus minus is going to be wrecked. I mean, Denver is second best record in the West. And I think they're an overall plus 13, a raw plus 13. So I'm with you. I don't think it's DeAndre Jordan, but I'm just trying to say if I build a bench lineup, to me, Bones, I feel most confident right now with Bones-ish and Vlatko. At least that's what I think where I would start building the rotation going forward. But nonetheless, your question originally was just how good are the Nuggets or how much do they need to be fixed or this or that? And I actually do think it is less so than probably most people realize. I think Denver is in line for a good extended run of good play, assuming they can stay relatively healthy from here. And I do want to see what they look like without Michael Porter, because that was the other thing. The bench, the defense, and playing, integrating Michael Porter. If they look great defensively, if they go on an extended run here without Michael Porter, I do think that you would have to read into it a little bit. Not that Michael Porter needs to be traded or this or that, but there's just something you should have to look into and say, okay, is this team looking more like what we thought they would look like? And how do we get Michael Porter to be a part of that if it's to happen?
I'd like to see them flex in a game, in a key situation. You know how we talk about sometimes we've talked about this, about teams just bringing their A game versus them and catching them off guard. Denver needs to do that with some good team. Boston in the rematch makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's not for a while though, right? We got a month.
Not for a while, but that's what I'm saying is you want to ramp up because I will get this takeoff here. 2 years ago, I said the Utah Jazz were peaking too early, and Jazz fans just clown me and ratioed me.
Oh yeah, they were great in December or something. Yeah,
they were amazing in December and January. They were incredible, and then I'll just say this: the Boston Celtics, to me, I am paying a lot of close attention to this. Their offense is running too hot. It is running too. I'm not saying you should miss shots intentionally. I'm just saying I don't believe you can play your best basketball for 8 months. I don't think it's possible. You have to try and you want the timing to natural. You want a little bit of adversity that you have to overcome. You want a little bit of a struggle. You want to be we had to really figure some stuff out. Right now, the net differential for Denver, even though they're absolutely killer with Jokic on the floor, it isn't great. The Nuggets have not found their best version of themselves, and they want to find themselves sometime in between January and March. Sometime in there, you want to find it and you want to flex it and you really want to show that you can defend. Somebody said this in the comment section. And to me, that's the big thing here, right? Is look, the offense is cooking. It's up to 7th in adjusted offensive rating at dunks and threes. It's awesome. We thought it was going to be awesome. I bet they'll be top 5. I'll bet they could be number 1 if Boston never misses a shot for the rest of the season. But the defense just isn't where it needs to be. And like, they're going to have to show that. Like and it hasn't been Michael Porter Jr., right? It hasn't been like it's been surprising because Aaron Gordon's having an absolutely phenomenal season, but offensively. But I haven't felt like him, KCP, and Bruce Brown have put together the kind of defensive game a lot or in a marquee spot that you would kind of want to see. Like, that's the stuff that you want to see. But what we're talking about here is like how much better they need to be is like fine tuning. The base works. Like, what they have works. This is a really good team.
Yeah.
And the fact that they haven't played their best ball and they're a game back in the Western Conference, to me, is proof of concept of that. They have won games when things have not gone perfectly. And that's a big freaking deal in the NBA regular season.
Yeah, that they get some home games. Maybe that'll be and I just think this upcoming stretch is an opportunity for them to kind of flex those things. And I'm curious to see if they do it. But to me, I think the Nuggets are a top 5 team in the NBA right now, which is an encouraging thing to say, given just how irregular the season has been. It's not by like, definitively this or that, but I just think they're a little bit better than all but about 5 teams in the NBA.
It's, what's tough is everyone's kind of like, well, we just got to see them all together. There's so many teams in the NBA. I just don't know how many teams I get to see on a nightly basis that are all together. Like, you look at Boston, look at what Boston's done. No Robert Williams.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams in Denver's boat.
Right. And it's just, here's the thing. I really don't know how many teams are not in Denver's boat. Like, I don't know how many teams I can look at and go, like, they haven't really had any injuries. Like, Chris Paul's missed a ton. Like, look at what happened to the Suns. They lost Cam Johnson. Chris Paul's been out. Like,
it is a little different than Jokic was out 3 games. Murray was out 3 games. Like, it's a little different. The Clippers obviously are the team that has had their main guys miss, half of their games, if not more. But your point still stands. Milwaukee is 14-5 without Middleton. I mean, they've managed it too. I'm just saying Denver 12-7, given the road heavy schedule, and given the fact that they're likely 2 or 3 games better than that if they don't catch COVID, which already. I just feel good about them. And then the numbers bear it out. Like Jokic being a +14, Gordon having a career year, Jokic having a career year, Murray looking. By the way, this last game Murray looked fantastic. Just knowing what to do, getting to his spots the way he needed to, very surgical. So there's just a lot of indicators of, hey, this team is looking pretty good. And by the way, Michael Porter, for all of his faults, and how things don't always look clunky, this or that, prior to about 6 games ago, he was having a career year as well. And now we know that he has a bone bruise, this injury to his heel. And it could be as simple as that. Like, hey, guys are dealing with an injury and maybe he needs a little time off. And when he comes back, he looks like Jamal Murray did when Jamal Murray got a little bit of a rest and is starting to come back into form. So I'm very optimistic about where the Nuggets are. And they have a prove it stretch coming up here, starting with 2 games against Houston, which I know they've won a couple games. But I'm sorry, Denver should win these ones and win them comfortably if they're the team I think they are.
All right, let's get a break. We'll go around the Western Conference. We'll take a look at what's going on around the rest of the league, and specifically in the West, as maybe this year's Western Conference isn't the gauntlet we thought it might be. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I need to tell you about PrizePicks. Let me tell you about how PrizePicks works, okay? You just pick 2 to 6 players, and if they'll score more or less in their PrizePicks projection, and you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. You're not competing against other people who obsess over this and use tools and do the entire day. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sports you can watch. You can do NFL, you can do NHL, go Avs. I went to an Eagles game this weekend.
Really?
Adam up in
Wow.
In NoCo. It was great. I had a really good time. There were so many fights. Minor league hockey fights are amazing. I wish we could PrizePicks fights. It was absolutely amazing going to the Eagles game in the ranch up in Loveland. Men's college basketball, women's college basketball, WNBA. Hey, World Cup, you can get on the World Cup on PrizePicks. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's just that easy, and they offer safe and fast withdrawals. They're currently operational in over 30 states and Canada, including Colorado. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up today and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Thanks for hanging out with us at night if you're in the live chat. If you do want to support the show, best way is to go to YouTube and sign up and subscribe. But we would also love your 5-star reviews. I want it noted that I have been not mentioned anything about football lately because I am trying to be better because Adam gave me legit criticism and feedback is a gift. So I am putting that out there. I'm trying to be good, Adam. I'm trying to be a good person. That's what I'm trying to be. You have no comment.
I don't know. Good job.
You have to reinforce me. You have to.
What kind of hoodie are you wearing today?
It's a WNBA.
Oh, okay. I thought it was.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it bothering you? Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on.
It was something else.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Here, I'll take it off. It's probably too bright. So,
yeah, well, there you go. This is
no,
what
hey,
you wanted me to sit here and applaud you. So, I don't. It's always a joke, but it's fine. I don't care. Like I said, I'm dead to the Broncos. The Broncos are dead to me. We can move on.
Anyway, so let's talk about the Western Conference because I gotta tell you, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how good the conference is. I'm really not. I don't know how many great teams there are.
Who is good? Because I keep hearing this. I don't know how many good teams. There's good teams. I don't think there might not be any juggernauts like you typically have, but I still think there are teams that are it's a very respectable team. That's going to be a tough team to beat.
Let's define it this way. How many teams are you scared of coming in, having to go to their arena for a pivotal game 3?
Warriors, who I think are starting to come into form.
Yeah, I've been on this. I have no idea. People were trying to bury them. I'm like, guys, their starting lineup still was the best in the league 2 weeks ago.
It's crazy. As somebody who's always citing the Nuggets' starting lineup, somehow the Warriors through all of these minutes are even a cut above them. So them, and then I would say Phoenix. Phoenix is a really good team, and then I would say Dallas in this one way. Dallas is sitting at 9-10. I'll say Dallas just because they have Luka and he's very scary. But to me, Phoenix and Golden State are extremely respectable teams that I think Denver getting a pivotal must-win game on the road. It's not that it feels far-fetched, it can't happen. It just is not a position you want to be in. And in the playoffs, you're put in those types of positions a lot.
I think Phoenix is still good. I think. Well, I want to ask you that question actually. Would you be worried about going how much would Phoenix scare you in a series?
They'd be tough. I mean, to me, it's a 50-50 series. We'll have to see how Denver comes. I mean, a lot of this comes down to Michael Porter's growth. I just feel so confident in the rest of the Nuggets' lineup. Porter in the playoffs, I just want to see him grow and see where he gets.
Okay, so Suns, Warriors. I've been saying this. I don't think the Grizzlies are. I just think the Grizzlies are very much a paper tiger this year. I just think they lost too much. I think they lost D'Anthony Melton and they lost Kyle Anderson, and I think the injuries are going to be a play. I think honestly, part of it is that they're just not Bane's out a while, and they're going to struggle without him. And these little injuries are going to tick off enough of them to make it easier. I think, or make it tougher for them to get a good seed. Not necessarily worried about Portland. They played really good basketball, but I don't think you have to be worried about Portland. If you're the Nuggets, I think you feel pretty good about going up against them in a series.
I think so.
The Wolves, obviously, look, the Wolves could be. I am not completely out on the Wolves, no matter how bad they are, but they are so far away from being a team that you have to be scared of.
Yeah,
I think you feel good about it.
It's funny, all of these takes, because it's Wolves and Warriors have the same record, basically. I mean, everybody was all in on the Utah Jazz. They're 12-10. Minnesota's 10-10. I think everybody's takes about all these teams is a little premature, just in that I mean, when they say like, oh, that's a team that's terrible, I can't believe this. Like Minnesota still might be good later on. I'm not buying it, but I just am not ready to write them off as a bad team. I will say though, I expect Denver. I think Denver is better than them, and I expect Denver to be better than them at the end of the year. They're not one of the. If Denver lost to them in a playoffs at this very moment, I would be like very disappointed.
I will tell you this: these are the teams I would write off right now from winning the Western Conference.
Okay, let's hear it. I love it.
All right,
Go
Rockets, Spurs,
okay.
Thunder.
Okay.
Jazz, Kings, Blazers.
Kings? The Kings are streaking right now.
They are. They're very good. They're very good. Can't win the West.
All right. Blazers.
The Blazers. The Mavericks. Write them off.
Okay.
Write them off. Can't win the West.
So far, you haven't said anything that's like that crazy, to be honest.
The Wolves I'll mark off.
Okay.
The Grizzlies I'll mark off.
Now you're getting into crazy stuff. I'm with it though. I thought I was the biggest Grizzlies hater.
The Pelicans is like, I think that there's something there. They can still unlock something. I'm not sure if they're gonna find it. So I will go ahead and I'm gonna pencil them out. I'm not penning them out. I'm penciling them out. And so really that just leaves Warriors, Clippers, Suns.
So you did not say Lakers, but I assumed you meant Lakers.
Yeah, Lakers are penned.
Okay. Yeah. So Warriors, Suns, Nuggets. I love it. I mean, honestly, I think those. If you were handicapping them, I just would feel very confident putting them those
Clippers,
teams 1, 2, 3.
Clippers are still there.
I mean, Clippers are a team. They're a theoretical team, man. Like, come on, man.
I get it.
They're such a joke. Like, I'm with you. Of course, they have Kawhi and Paul George. It's just we're 20 games into a second season of this, where it's like, what's going on there? So I don't know. I mean, I'm with you. You have to count them. I'm so annoyed of the Clippers. I wish we just would never talk about the Clippers.
Yeah.
Why do we have to talk about them when they won't play their guys? Like to me, it's insane. Here's the difference between I'm saying this is the one difference between you and me philosophically is I absolutely hate this idea of the regular season not mattering, even though it does matter or doesn't matter. And they're a team that just like personifies this. So I don't want to talk I don't want you to get the fame, the money, the marketing, all of those things if you refuse to play the game.
I agree with you. I'm 100% on this.
But they might be good. Yeah, they might actually end up winning it all. I mean, I've
been ranting in various places like an old man about how many times I think that there are players that can play that want to. Not just rest management, just like very like other occurrences. And I agree with you that you shouldn't have to talk about them. I don't think we have to talk about them in the regular season context, but the problem is like their entire strategy is to plan themselves, is to play and plan for the postseason.
Yeah.
And so like eventually you're going to probably have to, now you may not have to, they may just not be healthy then. Like, it may never happen for them.
Here's the one thing I'll say about the Clippers though. I think Zubac is one of the worst options for a center for you. And I don't know that they have a small ball lineup that scares me, even with Paul George and Kawhi. But again, it's going to be theoretical until the playoffs if they should match up. But like Zubac to me is below the threshold of what it takes to make Jokic work. And I shouldn't just say Jokic and Murray work. And that's why in this last game, they did not put him on Jokic. They did not let him guard Jokic. He guarded Jokic for like 4 possessions. Jokic dunk, Murray layup. Like Murray wide open foul line jumper where he took a breath before shooting it. It was ridiculous. So that's the only thing I'll say about them. But again, they're a theoretical team for now.
You're right. And I agree with you on Zoo. I've been really impressed with his growth the last 2 years. And he's been like independent of matching up against Jokic. He's really good, but
sure.
He's
Denver.
He's barbecue chicken in the matchup. Like
I don't think he's and like DeAndre Ayton is makes an impact. Even Nurkic makes an impact on Jokic to a level that you're going to need more, but at least it's a thing. Like I don't know what Zubac does in a playoff series, and I don't know what they do in a playoff series against Denver. I think I actually feel like that's a pretty good matchup for Denver, even though they're super talented.
Here's the thing though, man, is like, I don't know. Like you've got me on this. You know how many times I'm like, well, he plays Jokic pretty well. And now I'm like, bring whoever you got. Miles Turner, barbecue chicken.
Yeah.
Like Robert Williams.
Yeah, but at least Miles Turner, like, again, he's not going to stop Jokic, but at least he's going to make him work and take off certain options. Like, I think Zubac is a player that Denver will get whatever option they want when he's out there. And honestly, them not putting him on Jokic at all, and the few times that he was on him, the fact that it was just so, like, ridiculously easy for Denver, that makes me realize that they know it too. Like, it's weird when you take a player off of a center off of Jokic. They had him guarding Davon Reed for a while.
Yeah. I will say, for all of the things I've said about coaching throughout the years, that matchup is one that worries me.
That's Tyler.
Yeah, that's one I'm concerned with. Ty's really good at adjustments. He's real good. So, like, he's the opposite of Doc, right? Like, that was a big advantage in the bubble, was Doc just kept being like, nope, gonna put Montrezl Harrell back out there. It's like, what are you doing? Okay.
You're all not right. Portland. You're not worried about if you're the Denver matchup. I am curious to see. I mean, they play each other before too long, and I am curious to see how Denver does in that one. I don't think Portland's good, but are they a tough matchup for Denver? I don't know. We'll see.
So it's an interesting question based off of, in that playoff series, we talked about this the other day about how Nurkic won the minutes, right? Like, Nurkic won the Jokic minutes, but he couldn't stay out of foul trouble.
I mean, to call them the Blazers won them. I think Lillard averaged 40 something a game, but Nurkic won the minutes. Sounds a little upsetting, but I get what you're saying.
Their defense is starting to slide. Portland had a top 4 defense like 2 weeks ago, and it's starting to revert back to mean. It's back to 14th. Now, like, Denver's not one to talk, right? Because Denver's way lower. But I mean, look, Simons, I think, is scary because it's kind of like a mix of the two series, right? Of the two playoff series that we've seen between the two, where McCollum was so good in the first one. You can absolutely get that kind of a performance from Simons. I think this team isn't necessarily as tough as that one was with various guys. The first one, I mean. But I mean, look, like, Jeremy's playing really great for them right now. Grant's playing great. It'd be a juicy storyline. They have, and I like their bench quite a bit too. I like Portland. I just don't know if they can. I honestly am just kind of like, their entire strategy would have to be, we're going to win a shootout with Denver, and I just don't know. Like, I'll take Denver's weapons over Portland's, as good as Portland's are.
Yeah, I have so much faith in Jokic, Murray, and those guys getting great shots. I mean, to me, this is why I'm so excited for this upcoming stretch. Both of those guys healthy and back. Murray, what did Jokic say? He's going to suck for 20 games. Tomorrow is game 20. I'm just excited to kind of see, because I think that they're ready to take off and kind of show us that, oh yeah, those two can do pretty much whatever they want. KCP, Bruce Brown, and Aaron Gordon all read the court so well that I'm just kind of excited to see this group get the type of offense they want every time down, and hopefully focus on their defense a little bit.
All right, let's go wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back on Tuesday morning with a show recapping the Nuggets game versus the Houston Rockets. Make sure to hit rate, review, subscribe. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and turn on notifications to join the show. Have yourselves a great week. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. Hope you guys enjoy the holiday season. Let's get December started off right. Have yourselves a great week. We'll talk to you guys again on Tuesday with another edition